Hello, and welcome to Brain Says Strange Things. I'm Patrick, this is my brother Jordan, and this is the podcast where we talk about horror movies. Earlier this week, as everybody knows, the great, iconic actor Leonard Nimoy, best known for his portrayal of Mr. Spock on Star Trek, passed away. This is a big pop culture event, really. Even if you don't know Star Trek, everybody knows Spock. I happen to be a huge Star Trek fan.
What?
Yes. Well, I don't know if I've ever really mentioned it on the podcast. And I'll try not to go full out Trekkie on this episode, but I am a big fan.
I thought it was Trekker.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Star Trek and the original series and Leonard Nimoy. So we thought we would take one episode as kind of a tribute to Leonard Nimoy's work on that television series and series of films.
So you had to pick one.
Yeah, so
originally it was two, but we ended up doing one.
So there's so many different ways you can talk about Leonard Nimoy, even narrowing it just to his work on Star Trek. I mean, he was an actor, he was a writer, he was a director, he did photography.
Did he write on the original series?
No. He really got into the writing and directing in the series of films.
All right.
So we thought that we would start our discussion with a look at his work as a director on the Star Trek films. So Leonard Nimoy went behind the camera for the first time on Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. And only made a cameo appearance in that movie at the very end as his famous character. For this episode, we're going to do a review of Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, which he also directed, but also starred in, along with the rest of the cast.
Well, that's why we did it, because we were originally going to do the two, right? And then it was kind of like between the two then, because we just wanted to do one. And then this one, I feel like, just kind of encompassed him a little more, because he directed,
yes.
He had a hand in writing,
yes.
And he starred throughout.
Yes. So this, if, you know, as much as possible, if you can pick a single film in which to launch a discussion of Leonard Nimoy's work on Star Trek, I think this is a pretty good choice. It was also a hugely successful Star Trek movie. It was one of the most successful, if not the most successful. I kind of feel like it was probably the most financially successful of the Star Trek movies, maybe until the J.J. Abrams reboot. I'm not 100% sure if that's accurate, but I know it was definitely a huge hit. Yeah, so let's dive into our discussion of this movie, which we've both seen before. So this movie takes a really different track than the previous two films, although it follows up directly on Star Trek III. This one has a more lighter comedic tone to it. Essentially, the plot is there is a mysterious alien probe, the origins of which are never really explained, which is approaching Earth and causing all kinds of havoc and destruction, and is sending out this signal that nobody knows how to answer, but the result is that this probe and the energy that it's sending out is essentially going to destroy the Earth if they can't find a way to answer this signal. Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise... the crew of the Enterprise actually isn't in the movie.
The crew.
Kirk and his crew, they're on a Klingon ship. They start out on Vulcan at the beginning of the movie. They determine that this probe is sending out a call similar to that of the humpback whale, and they need whale song, essentially, to answer the probe and save the universe, or Earth, rather. But the whales are extinct, so they have to go back in time to what was then the present-day 1986 San Francisco, find humpback whales, bring them to the future, and save the Earth. So it's a really kind of goofy, but kind of smart, fun premise. And the bulk of the film takes place with the crew of the Enterprise interacting in a lot of sort of fish-out-of-water scenarios in present-day 1986 San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
So much goofier tone. I mean, I think it's safe to say you don't love this movie.
No, it's a good Star Trek movie.
Yeah. And when I first saw this movie, I didn't love it either. And I was actually really surprised to find out later that it was so successful, that it was considered one of the more successful.
It seems like that on first glance, but then if you think about it for a few more seconds, you're like, yeah, I understand why this was successful. Because it's not a Star Trek movie.
Right. Yeah.
It is not. It's more like the series, actually.
In some ways.
In some ways.
Yeah.
Not in the humor ways, but the story ways where there's not a villain.
Right. Well,
there's like nothing.
So, yeah, which Leonard Nimoy talks about in the commentary track.
Yeah.
There's not... Yeah, it's not...
Not that I would listen
to it. Doesn't have the kind of standard kind of dark, epic sweep of certainly the previous two Star Trek movies. It is more like a kind of lighthearted romp.
Well, the thing I think about with that is, like, you take out that, it's like, well, you're also taking out a lot of the drama.
Yep.
That happens. Like,
it's more.
It seems like a movie where nothing really happens.
Well, but the fate of the Earth is at stake. I mean,
Do you really feel like that in the movie, though?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, and it's not like I really think like they're not going to be able to pull this off.
No, but
I do think
I feel like you have to kind of keep being reminded like what's going on Earth.
Well, really. Sure, but I mean. This is not, I would say, a great film, but as I rewatch it more and more, I do admire it more and more. I think it's a smartly constructed script. The pace of the movie is good. It zips right along, and if this is your type of humor, which some of it I think has aged well, some of it has not, it's kind of a fun story.
What had aged well, though?
Well,
what kind of humor did?
I thought some of it was funny. I still laugh at certain parts of this movie.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah, but for you, the humor just doesn't work at all.
I don't know. It's just not funny.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's your main goal, to be lighthearted and funny, you better be funny.
Yeah.
And
I think this movie is funny. I think James Doohan is funny in this movie.
I think it's a pretty weak story too. It doesn't really. Yeah, I think so. I think you're giving it points just because it's so odd and off the wall. Like explaining like they have to go back in time and get whales to communicate with it. I mean, it sounds like a better concept almost than it actually pulled off. The whole time travel part doesn't work at all, does it?
I think it works. I think it serves the purpose.
You think so?
I think it serves the purpose of this film. I mean, it was bringing the crew into the present day. That was what sold this movie. That's what people wanted to see.
Yeah.
And I think the story that they came up with to get them there was a good one. I mean, there's a little bit of an ecological message here, right? Big in the 1980s.
There's a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah, there's kind of just enough of everything. Like, and it's like you say, like, thinking about it, you can understand why this one was the one that hit with the mainstream audience, right?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't. They didn't go too far in any one direction. It was just kind of a.
That's kind of why I don't like it. It's a little too nice, family friendly, happy.
Yeah.
Everybody dies or everybody lives. Nobody dies.
Right.
No villain.
Right.
No action. And like you say, and I always think about these movies too, is putting the old people in action situations.
Right. Well, that's always a little awkward.
It just gets so awkward.
Yeah.
You see them running, and it doesn't look like they've run probably like 20 years. I don't know. A lot of it's awkward, and they're doing it's like they point the camera at the person. I mean, I explained that to you with the Tyler Perry movie. I talked about where you put the camera on someone, you get everything like perfectly set, all the lights and everything, and then you plop the person down there, and they're supposed to be funny. But one thing you forgot is like they're not a comedian. I felt like that when I'm watching. Like, remember that scene where it's. I mean, I don't want to really rag on this movie too hard, but there's that scene where it's Walter Koenig and
Nichelle Nichols.
Nichelle Nichols. When they're talking like from a distance, it looked like they're. So, explain what they were doing.
Well, so all when they get to the present day, they all split up and have these little missions, all involving getting these whales on.
Just so they all have something to do in the story.
Which the script does again a good job.
It does do that.
Everyone their moment, which not all the Star Trek scripts do. Always a challenge for Star Trek movies.
So Chekhov got to fall off a boat.
Yeah, so they all have these little missions, and basically Walter Koenig and Uhura are attempting to locate nuclear submarines to
Yes.
power the ship to take it back to where
Yes,
they
and they're out of time, of course. They're in a different time, and he's asking the cop, where are the nuclear vessels?
Yeah, that's funny.
I get it's a funny concept, but look at how
I thought it was funny.
Look how it looks. You did not laugh.
Yes, I did when he asked for the nuclear vessels.
Okay, whatever.
I think that's funny.
Well,
I agree with you.
When they film it like from far away, it looked like they were setting up the shot.
Yeah.
And they're like running through the scene.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of like left whatever dialogue was in there.
Yeah.
So he's essentially like Tyler Perry, dressed up in his suit, plopped down there. I'm not hating on him.
I know you're going on a tangent here, though.
I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying, no, but that's what the humor of it seems like to me. Like in general, it seems like wrong people writing a funny movie. Like they want it to be funny, but it's not funny.
I think
I think that scene like kind of sums up why I don't like it.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of stuff like that.
There is a lot of the humor falls flat in this. I would say
I wouldn't hate a movie just for one.
Yeah, I would
bad
say
scene.
even most of the humor probably falls flat. But I do think there are a lot of funny moments. I do think this, and that's what I mean by it being a smart script. Not that I think it's this brilliant, groundbreaking idea of going back.
No, I know you don't think
but
that,
it's well constructed, right? Like it's like a nice piece of plot machinery. You know, it does give everyone something to do, which is always difficult for a Star Trek movie, right? You have an ensemble television show and you've got to make it in this 2-hour film. This movie is kind of a textbook example of how to do that.
It's a very basic example of how to do it. I think.
But you know what? Maybe that's what people want out of Star Trek movies. And this is where I could go on a big rant. What do people want out of Star Trek movies? Because I feel like Star Trek was conceived as an ongoing television series, and every time they do a movie, and some are better than others, they struggle with what is this supposed to be? Is Star Trek
the movies always come across like that. What is the original series? The original series is just how do we frame a social issue?
Right.
In this concept,
or examine some science fiction philosophical idea for an hour, and then we do it again in the next episode.
They'll have an episode about time travel,
right?
But it won't be the bad guy. They're chasing the bad guy down,
right? The fate of the Earth and the universe isn't always at stake. But so then you come to writing your movie, and you think like, okay, well, what do people want out of a Star Trek? Do we want to make it like Star Wars?
See, that's the problem with this movie, though. It's trying to please everything, and even the end.
I think they were
but. Well, you went to the bathroom. You didn't see this part.
I've seen this movie many times.
But it was like the scene at the end where they're like, okay, where they plop they finally rescue the whales.
Yep.
And they plop them down into the ocean to like, you're free now. And they plop them down right in front of like a whaling shipper who's going to shoot them with a harpoon. And then all of a sudden it launches into an action scene where it's like, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
And then they're chasing after him with a harpoon.
It's a little cheesy.
You're like, where did this come from?
Okay.
What does this mean with anything else in the movie? It's like they're trying to please the action fan base.
Sure.
But I think you like it because it's more of like a nod to fans. A lot of the scenes are like nods to fans.
I think I like it because, I've come to like it. Keep in mind, I did not really like. It's risen in my estimation.
Mm-hmm.
You say like they don't know who they were trying to play, a little bit of everything, but I actually think this movie is pretty confident in terms of like the tone they wanted to hit. It's pretty like
it's consistent in tone.
Yeah, in the kind of movie it wants to be. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's a little action, there's a little romance, but I don't. It doesn't seem like it's. That doesn't make it seem wishy-washy to me. I mean, this is a mainstream comedy,
it doesn't seem,
light sci-fi romp.
Well, it doesn't
on
seem
that
wishy-washy,
level,
though.
it's successful.
Yeah.
And that I think it hit what it was aiming for. Is it a little clunky? Yes. Are there some kind of tacky, cheap-looking scenes? Definitely.
That's fine. Look
Yeah.
at the original series. I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
But the original series that's the idea behind it, where they're talking about social issues or some sort of sci-fi element, and they're just going to discuss it for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a lot of sci-fi, quote-unquote, fans would like to see more of an action movie, right?
Yeah.
But then, okay, so this movie is totally confused with what it wants to be.
I don't think so.
I think it is. Because then it tries to be... They try to do an issue like that, where they talk about...
Sure.
It's about
They have an
not harming the
ecological
ecology.
Sure.
Yes, about how mankind has killed the whales. But did they examine it like they would in the series?
No,
it's sort of in there,
okay.
like little bits.
It was in there enough. I mean, even a comedy like The 40-Year-Old Virgin or something will have like a deeper point to it.
Right.
They don't dig into it in the way they would if it was a serious drama.
No.
But it's enough of a story to kind of give a little depth to what you're watching, and that's what I think they provided here. You know, same thing with the Spock character in our Leonard Nimoy tribute episode. He has a little arc through this, right? Mm-hmm. Spock has been brought back to life at the end of Star Trek 3. He has all of his intellect and intelligence again in this film, but he has to rediscover his humanity, which is basically the arc he had for years on the series and on the first few movies. But here it's simplified, it's streamlined, and it just kind of runs in a little gentle way over the film. Now you could look at that as a criticism and say, like, well, they didn't really dig into that, explain it in the way that they would have in a series. No, but in a movie that was primarily supposed to be a lighthearted romp, the Spock arc was carried through with just enough, you know, depth and attention.
I totally agree about the Spock part. I didn't have a problem with Spock. Spock, you said about his father, Sarek?
Mark Leonard,
right?
Yep.
The actor, that he brought a certain dignity.
Yeah.
Spock and Leonard Nimoy does that.
Yes.
To everything
in
these movies. Like, he brings, like, he's the straight man, pretty obviously, right? I mean, he's...
Well, kind of, yeah. He's sometimes...
I mean, yeah.
Sometimes he's the comedy relief, you know.
I mean, he's like a robot, sort of. He's half robot. He's half volcano. Or Vulcan. Let's see.
Let's focus.
No, I mean,
so you like Spock.
He brings a certain, like, dignity to it, I think.
So all I'm saying is, like, I think, like, the Spock arc and the little bit of action, the little bit of romance, and the little bit of ecology theme, I thought it didn't seem like it was going in a bunch of different directions. It didn't seem like an identity crisis to me. It seemed like just enough of a good story to kind of be a vessel for the comedy, which sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. I thought worked a lot of the time, you know.
Okay.
So
I guess I'm just not like a lighthearted romp fan.
Right. Well, that's fine. And see,
I'm trying to judge it. Like, is it a well done lighthearted?
I think it is. I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I do think you have to come in with some affection for the characters already.
You have to come in with a lot.
Yeah, like if these...
That's my point. You have to be absolutely in love with these characters to be able to excuse all the crap that they're doing that doesn't fit in.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. Like, if this had been like the only
Yes,
Star
imagine
Trek...
this is the first Star Trek movie.
Right.
Yes,
and there was never a series.
Right.
It's not like James Doohan and Nichelle Nichols would set the world on fire as these great comedic finds.
Yes.
You know, but having some affection for them from the previous movies.
Oh man, you give them a lot of leeway.
A smart script, and I do maintain that this is a very smart script.
I know you do.
And I thought it was pretty good. I like this movie.
Do you think it's more like related to like a kids movie though? Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, I just think it's like
what kind of? I don't know.
It's just like
I always think like what do you get out of it?
It's like a lighter kind of fun Star Trek adventure. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I wanted.
It's kind of like Star Trek home movies a little bit. They're just all kind of hanging out.
Well, I always
not much to do.
I think the script gives them plenty to do. I do think that Star Trek movies, at their worst, do sometimes come off as reunion specials a little bit. But then that goes back to the identity crisis of a Star Trek movie. Like, why are we here? What do we want? Do we want just the TV show on the big screen? Well, no, not really. Do we want it to be Star Wars? They've definitely taken that approach a lot. Not really. Star Trek is a little different than that. This movie had one idea about what a Star Trek movie should be. I think they pulled it off pretty well. I would not want every Star Trek movie to be like this. But I guess I think this film was basically a success. I mean, it certainly was a commercial success. And I think, critically, I think it works.
Well, there are far worse Star Trek movies.
Definitely. So. Including the preceding and following. Yeah.
What's the one that followed it?
Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, which is the one that William Shatner directed. we'll save discussion of that for
Never.
the William Shatner tribute episode, which we hope
No,
will be
don't say that.
years and years in the
No.
future. Years in the future.
Jeez.
Probably,
You
a long
jinxed it.
time from now. So anyway, gosh, what?
You know that scene at the end where he says "Live long and prosper"?
Yeah.
That's almost like out of another movie. Did you think that fit? What were they talking about?
I don't know. What was your problem?
I don't
Spock
know.
says live long and prosper. That's his thing. People want to hear that.
Exactly. But it's like, so
I think
the
your
story's-
problem is you're judging this against other cinema, and I'm
No,
judging this
no,
against.
no.
I'm judging this against other Star Trek.
I'm actually
movies.
trying to judge it against like Star Trek, the original series, like original.
Well, how would
IP
you
behind
rank
it.
this against the other Star Trek movies?
If I said
Like, would this be at the? Would this? Is this one of the worst Star Trek movies in your opinion?
No. If they like truncated this into like a hour episode or whatever they were, like 40-minute episode of the original series, right? They were an hour. It was an hour series. So if they shrunk it down to that, I think this would be like a middle of the road episode. Right?
Okay.
There's no good. Well, I mean, okay. There's an okay story.
Okay.
You got something in there for everybody. The thing I hate though is with the nods to the fans is it gets really distracting and it pulls away from like the story. It's like, oh, let's have a scene where Chekhov, or they have the scene where Chekhov falls off the boat for, I don't know, whatever reason, because he's out of shape maybe, or his stunt double tripped on something, I don't know. But then just so Bones can come in
Sure.
and have something to do, have a scene to do.
But
it has nothing to do with anything else. I just feel like that can kind of like be.
okay.
I wish it was more together.
So maybe-
remember the original series where like one character would go missing, and then they would go, their ranks would change. Like,
Oh, sure, I love that.
I love the
Yeah.
way they do that. So it seems like something's affecting something else. It seems like 10 different movies going on at once here. To me.
I disagree with you.
I
To
really,
me,
I, really,
I
think it is consistent in tone. It's just a very flat, boring tone, I think.
Huh.
I found the movie kind of...
Okay.
It's boring. It's funny if you watch it kind of like jokingly. Like, oh, Star Trek, I love you.
I mean, that's
Like,
somewhat
that's
of
that's
the,
kind of
the
how I look
spirit
at
I
it.
take it in. Definitely.
Okay. I guess you can watch it like that, so... A+? No, I don't know.
All right, fair enough. I mean, the thing about comedy, too, is it's so subjective. And so much of this is relying on humor. So it's like, if that is not landing for you,
Well, that's what I mean.
you can't really
It's
argue
like-
someone into that.
yeah.
So, you know. Okay,
I mean,
whatever.
I don't expect these people to be on screen. I'm trying to wonder what I want out of a Star Trek movie now.
Right.
It's like, I'd like to see these actors on screen. Maybe not quite this far into their careers. Maybe they retire, but I don't expect them, because I want them in it, but I don't expect them to be like knocking these one-liners out of the park.
Okay.
So it's safe in that way. It just comes across as kind of...
Okay, so for you,
Kind of
it
flat.
didn't work great.
Yeah, it's kind of like a dead, like a flatline
Yeah.
movie. It's not horrible.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's just kind of like it's a Star Trek movie.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorite Star Trek movies. It'd probably be like in the like the high middle somewhere. But yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Man, that was such a heated debate, and it's like middle and high middle. That's what we're arguing.
Well, right, exactly.
I say middle. I say high middle.
Yeah, but well, what would be? Could you say like what your like a really good Star Trek movie would be? I mean, I know you're not
God, do I have to
as
remember though?
into Star Trek as I
How about
am.
you remind me? I remember everybody says it, but I remember The Wrath of Khan being really good.
Yeah,
I
The Wrath
remember-
of Khan is kind of the popular favorite.
I remember the ending. That seems more like an action movie, but then you look back at it and there's not a lot of action. in it.
No, especially
So-
compared to today's movies.
Well, yeah, but I think like that's a really clever way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like not actually having action in your movie,
Yeah.
but making it seem as though there's
yeah,
action.
Nicholas
to the good
Meyer
story.
directed that film, and my favorite Star Trek film, Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered
Isn't he
Country.
the guy that wrote The Notebook?
No, that's
Nicholas Sparks.
Nicholas Sparks.
Okay.
But he did Wrath of Khan and Star Trek VI, the two best Star Trek movies.
Uh-huh.
And he had a hand in writing this film.
As did a
and
lot of people.
He kind of, in my opinion, is the one director who found that perfect balance of like spectacle and substance, and he really found out how to make a Star Trek movie work because the first film didn't really work for people. And he came in with number 2, kind of completely reinvented it, and they basically followed his model forward until they relaunched it with the next generation. But his movies, I just think, find that perfect balance. You know, they're real grown-up stories about adults. Like his, you know, we say a problem with this movie we watched tonight, and a lot of the later Star Trek movies with the original series cast, is that you've got these aging actors kind of trying to play these heroic roles that can be sort of an odd fit. In the Nicholas Meyer movies, he uses the age of the actors and the aging of the actors as story points, especially in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Well, also some of those jokes they're like age-appropriate jokes.
Right.
I remember some of that stuff, too, where that's like flying into the problem. Like, how do you get past someone thinking that this character's old? You don't want the audience ahead of you.
Right.
You want to cut them off at the pass. So you want to fly into the problem and be like, well, all right, we know we're old. All right, we get it. And so we'll make a bunch of jokes about us being old. All right, that's off the table. Now, can we get on with the story here? Well, this one, it's like they are all old and aged, but no one calls out.
Yeah, that's
no one acknowledges.
Yeah, and Nicholas Meyer in his movies, he's like, that's what the movie is about.
Yeah.
Kirk feels old.
Good.
And then at the end, after Spock's funeral, he's faced with life. He acknowledges mortality, and he says he feels young. You know, it's really
that's good,
really well done. We should watch that movie.
God damn it!
Although that one has the death of Spock at the end, so I don't know if I could have handled that scene right now. But okay, well, anyway,
could you handle the commentary?
Could I handle the commentary that we listened to for this
movie?
Yeah, it was a good commentary. It had
you didn't listen to all of it.
No, it had William Shatner and Larry Nimoy.
Yeah,
so it was fun.
And Shatner does whale sounds, so there's that. Yeah. Buy it. Buy this movie.
That was weird. Okay, so I think we've done a good job of honoring Leonard Nimoy by completely ripping his movie
I love him.
apart.
You can't make fun of something that you don't
completely love. And also the truth is, like, his legacy really is as an actor playing Spock. You know, not as a director. He also directed 3 Men and a Baby, another very successful comedy in the 1980s, and a handful of kind of lesser forgotten, you know, little comedies. So he's not like an auteur or anything.
Well, Spock's got the perfect position in these movies with the age appropriateness. This is like he's a...
Oh, he ages well.
He does. Yeah. He looks good in all of them. He maintains his character.
And one thing about Leonard,
little tiny arcs,
and one of my favorite things about Leonard Nimoy is he has a great old man voice. Like, as he gets older, I love listening to Leonard Nimoy talk. He just has that gravelly, like, deep baritone. He's just one of the best.
It seems like he's seen some shit.
Yeah, one of the best old man voices, and he just brings such a dignity to the role as a Vulcan. That's why I love Star Trek VI so much. I think he really...
Which was...
Well, that's the undiscovered country where they're trying to broker a peace with the Klingons. And there's a young Vulcan... Well, you don't remember.
I don't remember that
one. It's my favorite.
I was hoping it would jog my memory.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's really good. It has a very mature script. It's the last one with the original crew. It's very good. All right, we better wrap this up. I could say a lot more about Star Trek and Spock.
We'll do another episode or another.
No, we won't.
We'll do another Star Trek movie. Why?
Maybe we
I
will.
love Star Trek.
Maybe we should do a Star Trek special every once in a while.
I wouldn't be able to criticize Star Trek this way if I didn't like it.
I know you make fun of it all the time, but you love it. Kind of like Bones is always giving Spock a hard time.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's his way of showing that he loves Spock.
Exactly.
And us making fun of Leonard Nimoy's movie that he worked very hard on is our way of honoring the great actor. This was your idea to do a Leonard Nimoy special, which I was very grateful for. I thought that was a great idea. So, so many great tributes online, especially from like other actors, things they've been saying about Leonard Nimoy. So this is our just little drop in that bucket. And we'll, be back to more of our regular routine next time. But this one was for Leonard Nimoy. We think he deserved at least one episode of Brain Sister and things. So we hope you guys enjoyed this discussion, and we'll take the opportunity to check out, your favorite Star Trek episodes, your favorite Star Trek movies. Let us know what your favorite Spock moments are in the comments. And, there's only one Leonard Nimoy, so he will be missed, but he will be
He will live long and prosper.
He will live long and prosper. preserved on film forever. So thanks to you guys for watching. We hope you appreciated it, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.